Step into the shadows with Paranormal M. Our channel is dedicated to sharing real accounts of the paranormal that will send shivers down your spine. Don't miss a single bone-chilling episode. Subscribe and hit that notification bell now. Story number 1. Is this a ghost or a glitch in the Matrix? Today has been a whirlwind of inexplicable events, leaving me utterly perplexed and questioning the fabric of reality itself. It all began innocently enough as my girlfriend and I were engrossed in a delightful playtime session with our children in the cozy confines of our living room. Laughter filled the air as our little ones gleefully frolicked about, immersed in a world of dress-up clothes and costume jewelry. However, the atmosphere took an eerie turn when my girlfriend's son, clutching a pair of dainty earrings, inadvertently dropped one onto the floor. What transpired next defied all rationality. According to my girlfriend, it appeared as if time itself had slowed to a crawl as the earrings descended, and then, in a bizarre twist, it vanished into thin air without emitting even the faintest whisper of sound. Perplexed and intrigued, we embarked on a frantic search throughout our abode, scouring every nook and cranny for a glimpse of the vanished earring. Alas, our efforts proved fruitless as minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. Just when we were about to resign ourselves to an unsolved mystery, a most peculiar sight greeted our astonished eyes. There in plain sight, a mere few feet away from its original descent, the missing earring reappeared as if by magic. How could this be? My girlfriend's son had been firmly clutching the other earring throughout the entire search, and my daughter had never laid hands on either of them. The bewilderment deepened, and a shroud of inexplicability enveloped our minds, leaving us as utterly confounded as to the enigma that had unfolded before our very eyes. As if the strange vanishing act of the earring wasn't enough, the day continued to unravel with yet another inexplicable incident. Later in the afternoon, my girlfriend decided to accompany her son upstairs for a relaxing bath. Unbeknownst to us, an unsettling surprise lay in wait. Downstairs, I found myself engaged in casual conversation with the rest of our family, all enjoying the tranquility of the back porch or leisurely exploring the first floor. It was in this moment of familial bliss that my phone buzzed, heralding a perplexing text message from my girlfriend. According to her account, as she entered the bathroom with her son, an eerie occurrence took place. The electric toothbrush cleaner, mounted diligently upon the mirror, defied all reason by activating itself without any external stimulus. No one else was present in the vicinity to trigger such an inexplicable phenomenon, leading us to question the very laws of nature that govern our existence. This peculiar turn of events, completely unrelated to the earlier incident, seemed to be ominous and a harbinger of an unforeseen force at play. Seeking answers to these unnerving occurrences, my mind wandered back to the significant event that transpired a week ago. It was then that I had ventured into the recesses of my memories, unearthing a treasure trove of keepsakes and mementos carefully preserved within a box. This collection held an array of sentimental artifacts, including cherished possessions that once belonged to my beloved grandfather, who departed from this mortal plane approximately 5 years prior. Among the artifacts were my grandfather's hat, a locket housing his photograph, and a pendant containing a portion of his cremated ashes. My grandfather, a gregarious soul in life, had a penchant for mischief and loved to engage in light-hearted pranks that brought joy to all around him. The bond we shared was a special one, and I held the distinct honor of being his favorite grandchild. Could it be that these inexplicable occurrences were somehow linked to his mischievous nature, extending beyond the confines of his earthly existence? A haunting thought began to take root in my mind, causing goosebumps to dance upon my skin. Was this a mere glitch in the Matrix? An ephemeral tear in the fabric of reality? Or was it something far more extraordinary? Could it be that my dear grandfather from the ethereal realm beyond was attempting to communicate with us? reaching out through the veil that separates the living from the departed? These perplexing experiences culminated in a series of unexplained events that defied all logic, left me grappling with an overwhelming sense of awe and curiosity. As the day drew to a close, I couldn't help but ponder the mysteries that had unfolded before me. The earring's inexplicable vanishing act and subsequent reappearance, followed by the enigmatic activation of the toothbrush cleaner, seemed to be an intricate thread woven into a tapestry of the supernatural. In the depths of my being, I couldn't shake the feeling that these phenomena were not mere coincidences. Instead, they seemed to be a peculiar dance orchestrated by forces beyond mortal comprehension, orchestrated by a spirit of my grandfather. Perhaps in his mischievous ways, he sought to remind us of his enduring presence, bridging the gap between the corporeal and the ethereal with a series of bewildering encounters. As nightfall descended upon our household, I found solace in the warmth of my loved one's embrace, seeking refuge from the unyielding mysteries that had captivated our day. Despite the unanswered questions that lingered in the air, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude for the inexplicable events that had transpired. In this confluence of the mundane and the extraordinary, I had been granted a glimpse into the world beyond our own, where the veil between the living and the departed seemed tantalizingly thin. And so, with a mix of trepidation, wonder, and unwavering love, I bid the enigmatic day farewell, knowing that the mysteries of existence were vast and intricate, far beyond the grasp of mortal comprehension. Whether a glitch in the matrix or a playful spirit of my grandfather, these otherworldly encounters had left an indelible mark on my consciousness, forever reminding me of the boundless mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of our understanding. Story number 2. Woman on the Stairs. In 2014, I found myself living in a quaint terrace house nestled close to the vibrant center of Bolton in northwest England. It was a cozy abode, often referred to as 2 up, 2 down, due to its arrangement of 2 rooms upstairs and 2 rooms downstairs. These intriguing spatial dynamics added character to our humble dwelling. At that time, I resided with my then-girlfriend, who is now my beloved wife, and our precious son, who filled our lives with immeasurable joy. My girlfriend, ever driven and ambitious, was diligently pursuing a course to fulfill her dream of becoming a veterinary nurse. This endeavor required her to work a demanding 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, leaving me solely responsible for our son during those late hours. It was a role I embraced wholeheartedly, cherishing the special bond forged between my child and me during those quiet moments in the house. One evening, after tucking my son into bed and bidding him goodnight, I ventured downstairs to tackle the mundane but necessary task of washing the pots and pans. As I stood at the sink lost in my thoughts, and in the rhythm of the flowing water, a faint sound caught my attention. Footsteps resonated from the landing above, causing me to assume that my son had been roused from his slumber, eagerly seeking our company. Drying my hands with a nearby towel, I mentally prepared myself for the familiar routine of guiding my son back to his peaceful dreamscape. However, as the footsteps grew louder and more distinct, I noticed something peculiar. These were not the erratic and playful footfalls of a child, but rather the deliberate, measured steps of an adult. Curiosity mingled with a tinge of trepidation as the enigmatic sounds descended on the stairs. My gaze shifted from the kitchen to the stairwell, eager to uncover the source of this unexplained interruption. Anticipation heightened, and I braced myself for the imminent encounter with my son, blissfully unaware of the strange apparition that awaited me. And then, in that transformative moment, the apparition materialized before my bewildered eyes. A tall woman draped in an ethereal white gown stood poised on the final step. Her commanding presence surpassed 6 feet in height, while her flowing blonde locks cascaded down her back, illuminating the gloom of the stairwell. Yet, as her face came into view, an unsettling realization dawned upon me. There was an uncanny peculiarity to her countenance, an otherworldly quality that rendered her features strangely askew. It was as though she were an entity masquerading as a human, her presence both mesmerizing and disconcerting. Transfixed by this supernatural encounter, I stood frozen in shock for what felt like an eternity. Time seemed suspended, the world confined to the hushed anticipation that permeated the air. Gradually, courage welled within me, urging me to investigate further and ensure the safety of my slumbering son. With every ounce of resolve, I mustered the strength to ascend the stairs, each step an act of defiance against the inexplicable. As I reached the top, my heart pounding within my chest, I approached my son's bedroom with trepidation, pushing the door open with caution. A wave of relief washed over me as I beheld his serene form, blissfully oblivious to the eerie encounter that had unfolded mere moments ago. He slept soundly, undisturbed by the ethereal presence that had graced our home. Half an hour elapsed, the passage of time punctuated by the lingering effect of the mysterious encounter. My girlfriend, weary from her long shift, finally arrived home. Though still slightly shaken by the enigmatic apparition, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief and joy at the sight of another familiar face, a tangible human presence that reassured me of the solidarity of our shared reality. Thus, the events of that fateful evening etched themselves indelibly into my memory, a spectral visitation that defied rational explanation. To this day, I ponder the nature of that mysterious entity and its purpose within the confines of our humble abode. Such encounters serve as reminders of the enigmatic and wondrous tapestry of life, weaving together the realms of the known and the unexplained in a dance of intrigue and fascination. And so we continue to embrace the uncertainties that lie beyond our comprehension, forever captivated by the extraordinary possibilities that await in the realms of the unseen. Story number 3. Haunting or bad luck over a 20-year period. During my ex-husband's childhood, he lived in a house that was believed to be haunted. The peculiar stories surrounding that house still leave me wondering about the true nature of the haunting. One notable incident involved the entire family going out together, only to return and find their neighbors gathered outside watching their house in awe. Lights inside the house were flickering on and off mysteriously. My ex-father-in-law, skilled handyman, would have surely detected and effortlessly resolved any electronical issues in the house, leading me to believe that there was something more supernatural at play. Another eerie account from my ex-childhood revolves his sisters relentlessly tormenting him when he was around 6 or 7 years old. They would gang up on him, reducing the poor boy to tears. In response, he claimed to have conversed with the entity that resided in their home, pleading for it to make his sisters leave him alone. According to his recollection, there was an incident where the entity chased his younger sister into her room, where she sought refuge under the bed or in the closet. I can't recall the exact details. The entity stood by the door, barricading her inside, refusing to allow her to escape. This makes me wonder if perhaps this mysterious presence somehow attached itself to my ex-husband. Now, the reason I bring up these unsettling memories is because it ultimately led to the demise of our marriage. My ex-husband turned out to be a terrible spouse and a mediocre father, which compelled me to leave him. For a few years, he directed a lot of misdirected anger toward me before I finally gave up and walked away. Later on, I discovered that his mother had subjected him to horrific abuse throughout his upbringing, abuse that scarred him deeply and likely hindered his ability to maintain healthy relationships in his adult life. Growing up, he never really had healthy relationship models. as even his grandparents were unkind individuals who passed away when he was young. It leads me to ponder whether his family was plagued by some sort of generational possession. It's quite a leap for me to even consider this, as I'm typically a skeptic, but strange occurrences transpired during our marriage as well. Shortly after our marriage in 2001, we purchased a house together. As someone who's sensitive to energies, I've always been able to detect negative vibes in a place. When we first acquired that house, I assure you, it was pristine and free from any negative energy. The surrounding woods exuded tranquility, and moving from the city to this idyllic setting felt like a godsend. However, within a year of residing there, peculiar events began to unfold. There was a particular spot in the house that emitted a sound akin to a radio playing in the background. It resembled the noise you hear when someone accidentally leaves the radio on in another room. Strangely enough, the audio resembled talk radio rather than music. Whenever I would rise to turn it off, assuming it was the radio in the kitchen, I would discover that nothing was actually playing. This phenomenon occurred frequently, and I wasn't the only one who experienced it. Moreover, the sound could only be heard in that specific spot within the house and nowhere else. We also had a loft area instead of the attic, and we would often hear footsteps originating from there. However, whenever we investigated, we would find nothing out of the ordinary. It was as if the sounds were merely figments of our imagination. The strangeness intensified after our children were born. Once they began speaking, they would make unsettling statements about not wanting to sleep in one particular bedroom. According to them, a demon with red eyes resided in that room, consistently perched at the ceiling's corner. My oldest child experienced frequent night terrors, waking up to the entire household with blood-curdling screams that made it seem as if someone were attacking him. I couldn't console him. He was utterly terrified, seemingly possessed by an overwhelming fear. Eventually, I decided to move him out of that room, allowing him to sleep beside me to alleviate his nighttime anxieties. Around the same time, baby number 2 arrived, and due to my ex's early morning work schedule, I opted to stay in one room with the children, separate from where he slept. Soon after, baby number 3 joined our family. Juggling multiple infants and enduring chronic sleep deprivation during this period, I struggled to discern whether the unsettling occurrences in that house were solely due to my exhausted state of mind, or if there was indeed something malevolent toying with us. Our dog, who slept with my ex-husband in the demon-infested bedroom, would occasionally fixate on the same corner where the children claimed to have witnessed the red-eyed entity. I even managed to capture a video of her gazing intently at the corner, as if she could genuinely see something that eluded our human senses. As my oldest child transitioned into adolescence, he occupied the loft area as his personal space. One day while he was calmly sketching, a book from his shelf abruptly flew across the room without an apparent target. It seemed to happen at random, adding to the mounting sense of unease within our household. All 3 of our children insisted that they had encountered the red-eyed demon when they were between the ages of 2 and 6 years old. Remarkably, they described seeing it in the exact same spot within the dreaded bedroom, one that none of them would dare sleep in except for my ex-husband. The youngest child even claimed to have spotted figures lurking in the woods outside of our house, peering into the windows at night. We had a spacious Florida room divided into 2 sections with an entire wall consisting of windows. It was a breathtaking room blessed with southern exposure. Our nearest neighbors resided behind us, so the expansive view of the woods provided a sense of privacy. We decided to transform the 2 sections of the room into bedrooms. However, my youngest child's fear of the alleged entities in the woods led me to hang curtains to shield them from their gaze. Even I felt an eerie sense of apprehension about those windows at night, particularly due to the unsettling reflections that they produced. I avoided gazing at them altogether, fearing what I might see in the darkness beyond. The situation improved after I hung up the curtains, providing a semblance of safety. Over the course of our 2 decades of homeownership, countless strange occurrences transpired in that house. When our relationship fell apart, I gladly relinquished any claim to the property, as I had no desire to retain ownership. Upon leaving, I removed all the protective objects I had placed in the windows, which in hindsight may have been a mistake. I now wonder if the energy I invested into safeguarding the house from negative forces inadvertently protected my ex-husband. After our separation, his health drastically deteriorated to the point where he could no longer work. Eventually, he became unable to meet the mortgage payments, leading to foreclosure. He clung to the house for several years, navigating a maze of legal battles, until he was finally forced to vacate just a few weeks ago. When we initially moved in, the property exuded beauty. There was no trace of negativity, and I firmly believed that the woods behind our house were unspoiled. Yet, by the time we all left, the place had become dilapidated both physically and energetically. Even with all the lights turned on, the atmosphere felt perpetually shrouded in darkness, a stark contrast to the sunny days that we were once enjoying, playing with our young children. As time passed, those joyful sun-filled moments became increasingly scarce. Even when the weather outside was idyllic, the house seemed to absorb the light, rendering it perpetually dim. The once charming woods took on an ominous and foreboding air. During our early days in the house, I frequently encountered woodland creatures such as groundhogs and squirrels and deer, and even the occasional bear, typical inhabitants of the surrounding woods. However, as the years wore on, the area became overrun by feral cats, further adding to the unsettling ambiance. There was nothing left of the property's original allure. Countless disconcerting events had unfolded within its walls. Additionally, the house directly across the road also harbored a dark presence. It's difficult to ascertain whether my ex-husband's negative energy somehow influenced their misfortune, or if they too had encountered an independent malevolent force. Perhaps both families had unwittingly become entangled in a web of supernatural malevolence, reinforcing each other's plight. The occupants of the house experienced unimaginable tragedy. Their oldest child displayed alarming tendencies that hinted at a potential future serial killer. He even threatened to harm my own children and cruelly killed a cat in their presence to underscore his malicious intent. Cancer and other grave health issues plagued both parents, with the father suffering a stroke at a shockingly young age of 55, despite his prior fitness and vitality. This devastating event left him permanently bedridden, unable to speak and subject to merciless abuse at the hands of their disturbed oldest child. The older sibling's threats grew so severe that a restraining order became necessary, resulting in his expulsion from the household. The mother made 4 unsuccessful suicide attempts, only to meet an abrupt demise one fateful day. Out of the blue, she suffered a heart attack, ending her life without any apparent cause or warning. The sheer magnitude of misfortune that befell the 2 families across the road is staggering, far surpassing the realm of mere coincidence. As a skeptic, I often find myself questioning whether it was simply a convergence of extraordinarily bad luck, or if something far more sinister was at play. Regardless, the level of malevolence and despair that tainted that area is undeniable. There are countless more unsettling incidents and chilling details that I could recount about our time in that house. However, the extent of the natural occurrences, coupled with the enduring impact on our lives, is already overwhelming. It serves as a haunting reminder of the inexplicable forces that can infiltrate our homes, leaving us bewildered and forever changed. The mysteries surrounding my ex-husband's childhood experiences in his purportedly haunted house, the eerie happenings that transpired during our marriage, and the subsequent deterioration of our once idyllic home continue to perplex me. While skepticism may linger within me, these eerie occurrences have left an indelible mark on my consciousness, forever challenging my rationality and pushing me to question the nature of the paranormal world that we inhabit. The Myrtle's Plantation Hauntings. Did anyone else have any experiences there? I've had the incredible opportunity to visit the Myrtles plantation not just once, but 3 times. And on 2 of those occasions I actually spent the night there. Let me recount the spine-chilling experiences I had and share my curiosity about whether anyone else has encountered anything during their overnight stays at this notorious haunted location. The first time I slept at the Myrtles plantation, the eerie occurrences began even before nightfall. Accompanied by my fiancé, we opted for one of the more affordable rooms on the right side of the house. Although I can't recall the exact name of the room, I remember its location vividly. After ascending the stairs, we took a right turn and reached the final room on the left. According to the stories that we heard, a soldier who had lost a leg or a foot once occupied that very room. As we approached the door, an overwhelming scent of cigar smoke enveloped us. It was as if someone were standing beside us, puffing away on a cigar. I turned to my fiancé and asked if he could smell it too, and he confirmed that he could. The smell dissipated as quickly as it had appeared, and we brushed it off, assuming that it might have been someone sneaking a puff from a nearby room. However, as we entered the room, I brought up the superstition about the upside-down keyholes, which supposedly deter spirits from entering the premises. Just as I finished explaining this, my fiancé switched on the antique lamp in the room, and the bulb unexpectedly exploded. Although it startled us, I reasoned that the lamp must have been old and faulty. We promptly informed the staff at the gift shop about the incident and requested a replacement bulb. They sent a maintenance worker up to our room, and we followed him there. The worker successfully replaced the bulb but encountered difficulty when attempting to turn on the lamp. Eventually, he concluded that the entire lamp needed replacing. While we waited for him to retrieve a new lamp, strange sounds reverberated through the room as if someone were repeatedly striking the floor with a cane. The vibrations were palpable, and I shared my unease with my fiancé. He speculated that perhaps it was someone downstairs banging a broom on the ceiling to signal that we were walking too loudly. However, this theory was flawed because there was no guest bedroom below us. Instead, it was the dining room, off limits to guests, unless they were on a guided tour, that is. To me, it sounded precisely like someone tapping a cane against the floor to gain attention from the room below. We decided to investigate further and approached the gift shop, which we inquired about the presence of anyone in the main part of the house. We recounted the strange events to the shop attendant, who informed us that the room near the main entrance was reserved but unoccupied, and no one had access to the dining area due to it being locked and off limits until tours began. Grateful for her information, we thanked her and proceeded to explore the grounds. As night fell, we settled into bed, completely unaware of the terrifying ordeal that awaited us. In the dead of the night, I abruptly awoke with an intense feeling of being watched. The lamp that we had replaced earlier was left on, providing enough illumination for us to see if we needed to use the bathroom. Turning towards my fiancé, assuming that he was also awake, I discovered that his eyes remained closed, and he slumbered deeply. Sensing an unseen presence, I sat up and scanned the room until my gaze locked onto a figure standing at the foot of the bed, merely 2 feet away. The spectral figure appeared to be a man, smoke swirling in front of his face as if he had just taken a drag from a cigar. I could only see the upper part of his body, and he seemed to be fixated on me. For approximately 10 agonizing seconds, I stared back, frozen in fear. Finally, summoning whatever courage remained within me, I uttered a resolute "nope" and hastily buried myself under the covers, tightly closing my eyes, determined to fall back asleep. The next morning, I recounted the harrowing encounter to my fiancé, who questioned whether I had wakened him or not. I confessed that all I wanted to do was return to sleep. The last thing I desired for was both of us to be awake, locked in a petrified stare with the apparition. Later that afternoon, we packed our belongings and departed, eager to leave the haunting behind. A year later, driven by both fascination and trepidation, we decided to return to the Myrtles plantation for another overnight stay. This time, we selected a different room, located across the hall from our previous lodgings. However, this new room had an unusual feature. It was connected to the room positioned in front of the stairs. A door within our room led directly into theirs, providing it remained unlocked. Throughout the day, we experienced no strange events, and during the night, I slumbered peacefully, undisturbed by supernatural forces. We retired to bed around 9 p.m., hoping for a restful night's sleep. In the room, there was a small luggage rack, which I placed beside the bed and used to hold our phones, my eyeglasses, my fiance's wallet, and my charger. The following morning, as I reached for my glasses and phone, I noticed something amiss. The luggage rack was absent, and I couldn't locate any of the items that had been resting upon it. I sat up, perplexed, wondering if I had accidentally knocked maybe everything on the floor during my sleep. Scanning the area around the luggage rack, I found nothing. Filled with a growing concern, I woke up my fiancé, fearing that he had fallen victim to a robbery. I hurriedly crossed the room to check the door that connected our room to the adjacent one, but the lock remained firmly in place. Confused and alarmed, I turned back to survey our room once more. It was then that I noticed everything that had been on the luggage rack was now strewn across the center of the room. There was no logical explanation for how these objects had migrated there, except for the unsettling possibility that someone or something had purposely picked them up and thrown them across the room. Remarkably, nothing was damaged or broken. We decided to collect our belongings and sweep away the disturbing scene and head downstairs for breakfast. While we were enjoying our morning meal, we happened to find ourselves seated across from a couple who had occupied the adjoining room during the night. Curiosity piqued, they asked if we had woken up during the night and inquired about our well-being. Confused, we explained that we had slept soundly and only awakened recently. They proceeded to share their side of the story, revealing that they had heard a commotion emanating from our room during the night. They had contemplated knocking on our door to check if we were okay, but ultimately refrained from doing so. According to their accounts, they never heard a peep from us and assumed that we were sound asleep. However, they were awakened by the sound of a loud banging and objects being thrown originating from our room. I recounted the incident involving the missing luggage rack, and they expressed their astonishment at the intensity of the noise. They couldn't fathom how we managed to sleep through such an uproar, considering the Myrtle's creaky wooden floors, which would typically transmit even the slightest disturbance. Strangely, we were equally baffled as to why we had remained blissfully unaware of the cacophony that had transpired in our own room. With yet another hair-raising tale to add to our collection, we bid farewell to the Myrtle's plantation once more. Its haunted history and the inexplicable encounters that we had experienced left an indelible mark on our memories. To this day, I wonder if others who had spent the night at Myrtle's plantation have encountered similar ghostly phenomena. The allure of the supernatural and the desire to delve deeper into the mystery of this haunted abode continue to beckon, leaving me yearning for more spine-tingling adventures at this historical landmark of the paranormal. Story number 5. I think I saw a ghost and I don't know what to do. Throughout my entire life, I've had a skeptical stance when it comes to anything related to the paranormal. However, despite my reservations, there have been countless spooky experiences that I simply couldn't explain away. It's not just me, though. Even my mom has had her fair share of inexplicable encounters. Now let me delve into the events that have been unfolding since I moved into my current flat over a year ago. Initially, everything seemed perfectly ordinary, until one fateful night. It was around 8:30 p.m., a time when my partner, a 28-year-old man, and I, a 27-year-old woman, would often settle down for the evening. Suddenly, an eerie sensation would engulf the entire flat, as if the temperature dropped abruptly to a bone-chilling -20 degrees Celsius. The chilling air lasted for a fleeting moment, leaving us both bewildered and on edge. But that was just the beginning. On numerous occasions, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if unseen eyes were fixated on us, their penetrating gaze causing an uneasy shiver to run down our spines. Moreover, there were instances where we were catching glimpses of fleeting figures in our peripheral vision, vanishing as soon as we turned our heads. It was these unsettling occurrences that heightened our sense of unease. However, it was the events of last night that truly shook me to the core. I was situated in my living room just a mere 2 feet away from the doorway. Without warning, an overwhelming urge compelled me to turn my head and gaze toward the entrance. What I saw sent shockwaves through my entire being. There, in the dimly lit hallway, I could have sworn I caught sight of a tall, ginger-haired woman, elegantly swathed in cream-colored bedding or robes. It seemed utterly implausible, and I was acutely aware that my mind could be playing tricks on me, but nevertheless the image has been etched into my consciousness, relentlessly replaying in my thoughts. Now faced with this perplexing situation, I'm left wondering if there's anything I can do to kindly usher her presence away, or if it's all merely a figment of my imagination. I want to stress that I was in a completely sober state, free from the influence of any substances, and I wasn't excessively fatigued at the time of the sighting. It's essential to rule out any potential external factors that could have contributed to this uncanny experience. In my quest for answers, I find myself torn between the realms of skepticism and open-mindedness. Is it possible that there is some otherworldly force at play in my otherwise ordinary flat? Or am I simply conjuring these manifestations within the depths of my own mind? It's a conundrum that plagues me, leaving me in a state of uncertainty and seeking guidance. Therefore, I implore anyone with expertise or knowledge in matters of the paranormal to shed some light on my situation. Is there a peaceful resolution that can be reached? Can this mysterious apparition, if indeed it exists, be convinced to depart gracefully? These questions swirl incessantly in my thoughts as I strive to find a solution that will bring both tranquility and understanding to this bewildering chapter of my life. Story number 6. The Ghost in My House, plus her backstory. In the year 2016, my family and I had just moved into a new house, and as the excitement of exploring our new home took over, I found myself venturing to the depths of the basement. The air was cool and musty, and the dimly lit space seemed eerily silent. However, that silence was soon shattered by a faint, almost ethereal female voice that echoed from behind me asking, "Who are you?" Startled, my heart skipped a beat as I swiftly turned around to investigate the source of the voice. There before me stood the shadowy figure of a pale woman with dirty blonde hair. She wore a tattered red dress and a white hat adorned with a single rose. My eyes widened as I noticed the haunting sight of a stab wound on her body, underneath her rib, stomach, and right side of her head. It was a chilling sight that sent shivers down my spine. I cautiously approached the mysterious woman. She seemed to sense my apprehension and took a step back, her voice growing softer as she introduced herself. "Don't be scared, my name's Vanessa." From that day forward, Vanessa began to appear near my closet and windows during the night. It was as if she sought solace or companionship in the darkness. She would softly hum songs, and although I couldn't recognize most of them, I was able to identify Kitty Kalin's "It's Been a Long, Long Time" as one of her haunting melodies. Vanessa explained that her humming was a result of an insufficient sleep, and she hummed to keep me company during those restless nights. As we spent more time together, Vanessa gradually revealed her tragic backstory to me. She was born on August 16th, 1953, in Hackensack, New Jersey, and eventually relocated to the same state where I currently resided. In 1972, she purchased the very house in which I now lived. Vanessa had only completed high school when she married a man named Mr. Henderson. Their marriage was far from blissful. Mr. Henderson proved to be an abusive husband, subjecting Vanessa to physical violence and infidelity. The pain of their relationship reached its horrifying climax when he callously took the life of their own child. The depth of Vanessa's despair were immeasurable. Tragically, on Vanessa's 21st birthday, Mr. Henderson's cruelty reached its peak. In a fit of rage and desperation, he violently ended her life, stabbing her multiple times in critical areas of her body. The gruesome act took place near the boiler in the house. Reflecting on my first encounter with Vanessa, it became apparent that she likely succumbed to her injuries and died from blood loss. To this day, the whereabouts of Vanessa's remains remain a haunting mystery. One theory suggests that Mr. Henderson disposed of her body in a way that would prevent discovery, possibly even going so far as to eliminate any evidence that might have caught media attention. Another, and perhaps the most plausible theory, proposes that her lifeless form was hidden within the boiler itself. The house had remained vacant for over 3 decades before my family moved in, allowing ample time for a body to decompose completely. Lastly, there is the chilling possibility that her remains lie entombed within the concrete foundation of the basement, concealed beneath the very ground I once stood upon. I recall seeing an old and worn-out cement mixing machine during one of my visits to the basement, further fueling this unsettling speculation. In the present day, Vanessa continues to make a presence known in my life. She appears from time to time, seeking conversation or sharing stories from her past. She has also taken on the role of guardian to other spirits within the house, ensuring their presence doesn't bring harm upon me. It's a bittersweet realization that Vanessa often mistakes me for her late son, Charles. Despite the sadness it evokes, I allow her to believe this misidentification, understanding that it provides her with a small measure of solace amidst the enduring pain of losing her child. Thus, the tale of Vanessa, the tormented soul bound to the house I call home, intertwines with my own existence. Together we navigate the ethereal realms of the past and the present, each finding solace and companionship within the fragile threads connecting our intertwined destinies. Story number 7. OC, when I was in detox, and IOP, haunted detox home and haunted IOP farm mansion. Let me tell you a remarkable story and chilling experience that I had during my detox from heroin. This was the first time I had ever encountered such a profound and terrifying situation, and it left an indelible mark on my memory. Allow me to take you back to that fateful night when my encounter with the supernatural began. As I prepared to retire for the night, I found myself in the master bedroom alongside other women going through the same detox process. Exhausted, I closed my eyes, hoping for a peaceful slumber. Little did I know that my sleep would be disrupted by a haunting vision of my late grandmother. She appeared before me, her ethereal presence hovering over my immobilized body. I sensed a deep unease in the atmosphere, and it became clear that something was amiss. In that moment, I realized that I was unable to move or speak, trapped in a state of utter helplessness. It felt as though an invisible weight was bearing down on me, constricting my very being. But my grandmother, appearing much younger than I remembered her, reassured me with a gentle voice. "It will be okay, just breathe. Have faith and this torment will dissipate. I'll handle it." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I managed to pry my eyes open. However, I remained paralyzed with fear, gripped by the terrifying notion that I might not survive this ordeal. My heart raced uncontrollably, pounding in my chest. It was only when a staff member entered the room to check on us, their presence symbolized by a small beam of light, that I found the courage to voice my distress. I divulged the harrowing encounter, and it was then that I learned a grim truth. Apparently, a woman with anorexia had tragically passed away in that very room, quite possibly at the very bed I had been lying on. The coincidence struck me deeply, as I too had battled with anorexia in my past. Fearing the lingering presence and its effect on my well-being, I beseeched the staff to relocate me to another part of the facility. Sadly, my plea was only partially answered. While I was moved upstairs to a different room, I could still sense an unsettling presence lurking in the shadows. Its ominous energy seemed to coil around my feet, filling me with an uneasiness that refused to dissipate. I soldiered through my detoxification process, enduring the lingering discomfort and the unshakable feeling that I was being watched, even during my vulnerable moments of rest. Upon completing my detox, I was transferred to a farm mansion owned by the facility, rumored to have been haunted by both former workers and patients. To my dismay, I found myself assigned to a room that once belonged to children. Each night as I settled into bed, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me, as if an invisible entity harbored ill intentions toward me. I was trapped on my back, unable to shift positions or even draw breath properly. The malevolence emanating from this otherworldly force drained me of vitality, leaving me feeling weak and defenseless. This relentless torment persisted for weeks on end, each night a grueling battle for survival. In my desperation, I yearned for my grandmother's intervention once more, but she never materialized. The facility's staff witnessed my distress and, recognizing the urgency of the situation, moved me downstairs, where their watchful eyes and immediate aid could offer some solace. It was a relief to be in close proximity to their support, knowing that they were just a few steps away if another episode occurred. Yet the terror had not abated entirely. During that same week, we discovered peculiar evidence of an otherworldly presence in the form of small footprints mysteriously appearing in the kitchen. No matter how diligently the area was cleaned, these marks would stubbornly reappear, like stains etched into the fabric of reality. The sight of these inexplicable footprints only served to heighten the sense of dread that enveloped me, reinforcing the notion that something profoundly malevolent was at work here. I cannot deny that during that period of my life I had embraced the path of Satanism, welcoming all that it entailed. Little did I realize the grave consequences of my choices, for it seemed as though an unseen entity had latched onto me, relentlessly pursuing its dark intentions. The malevolence permeated every corner of my existence, inflicting both physical and spiritual torment that I struggled to comprehend. Even after relocating to a group building an hour away, this malevolent force dodged my every step. I would fall into a deep slumber, only to be rudely awakened, my body paralyzed, my voice extinguished, and my breath restricted. Chaos would ensue among those around me, panic spreading like wildfire. Desperate attempts were made to revive me, pouring water into my mouth, hoping to awaken my lifeless form, but all in vain, for I remained trapped within my own motionless shell. As I lay there, witnessing the frantic commotion unfolding around me, my vision gradually faded into darkness, my world reduced to a void of nothingness, my senses dulled, my breathing grew weaker, and I could feel the grip of mortality closing in. Panic consumed me as the realization dawned that my life teetered on the precipice. I resigned myself to the imminent embrace of death, accepting my fate with a heavy heart. But then, unexpectedly, as if by divine intervention, I felt a surge of life returning to my body. Grasping for air, I emerged from the clutches of despair, my vision gradually restored and the muffled sounds of chaos transformed into a symphony of clarity. The paramedics arrived just in time, their arrival coinciding with my miraculous revival. They prepared to administer Narcan under the assumption that I'd overdosed, unaware of the supernatural forces that had held me captive. It was a disorienting journey to the hospital, yet a sense of relief washed over me as though the malevolence that had pursued me had finally retreated, at least for the time being. Seeking answers, I questioned the medical professionals if what I had endured was merely sleep paralysis. Their response, however, revealed a very different reality. They assured me that the activity within my brain appeared normal, negating the possibility of sleep paralysis as the cause of my affliction. Confounded, I pressed for further explanations, desperate to understand the forces that had sought to claim my life within the confines of that haunted space. Armed with medical documents chronicling my terrifying encounters, I returned to the facility, presenting them to the supervisor. His astonishment mirrored my own, as the evidence before him validated the unfathomable horrors I had experienced. Several days passed, and with little regard for my well-being, I found myself being ushered back into the very room I had vehemently refused to occupy. The specter of suicide watch loomed over the facility, intensifying my anxiety, knowing that I was compelled to spend another night in the clutches of that demonic presence. Fear coursed through my veins as I faced this grim reality. However, long before I made the decision to leave the facility against medical advice and seek solace elsewhere, strangely, as soon as I distanced myself from that haunted abode, the nightmarish encounters ceased abruptly, leaving me bewildered. It's worth mentioning that this was not the first time I had encountered such spine-chilling phenomena. In a previous episode, I bore witness to a demon hexing me, a nightmarish event that sent shivers down my spine. Thus, the series of supernatural incidents during my time in detox represented the culmination of a long and torturous journey, where voices whispered in the darkness, spectral apparitions danced at the edge of my perception, and both physical and spiritual torment became an unyielding companion. Reflecting on those dark days, I couldn't help but realize the grim consequences of embracing the path of Satanism. My misguided foyer into the occult had unwittingly opened doors to forces beyond my comprehension, allowing them to invade my very being, shrouding me in a cloud of darkness and despair. Story number 8. They don't come if you sleep on your side. This eerie incident that I'm about to recount took place during my high school years, a time when life was full of uncertainties and inexplicable occurrences. It all began with a restless week where sleep seemed to elude me, tormenting me with its elusive grasp. Out of those nights, one in particular stands out vividly in my memory, as it brought forth a dream so haunting and disturbing that its residual effects lingered long after I awoke. In that ghastly dream, I found myself trapped in my bed, unable to move even an inch. The sensation of paralysis weighed heavily upon me, reminding me of a spine-chilling movie I had watched previously. It depicted a person who, while conscious during surgery, was rendered motionless. The mere recollection of that film sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't shake off the unnerving feeling it provoked within me. Seeking solace and reassurance, I decided to confide in my mother, hoping that she would provide some logical explanation to ease my troubled mind. Relating my ordeal to her, I expressed my fears and described the unsettling dream that had plagued my sleep. To my relief, my mother dismissed it as a consequence of the aforementioned movie, attributing my distress to its lingering impact on my subconscious. While her words brought a semblance of comfort, I couldn't help but sense an underlying unease within her response, as if there was more to the story that she was withholding. The subsequent night arrived, and as I roused from my slumber in the dark hours, I found myself grappling with an overwhelming difficulty in returning to the realm of dreams. Determined to coax myself back to sleep, I made a conscious decision to shift my position onto my stomach, hoping that a change in posture might alleviate my restlessness. As I rolled over, my gaze inadvertently fell upon the hallway that led outside my bedroom, which, to my utter dismay, appeared engulfed in an unusually deep darkness. It was an abyss-like void that seemed to defy the laws of illumination, unnerving me to my core. Despite the unnerving sight, I mustered the courage to rest my head upon the pillow, seeking respite in the embrace of sleep. However, as if fate had conspired against me, I felt an inexplicable weight abruptly descend upon my back. Startled, I gasped for breath, only to find my body sinking into the bed, crushed beneath an unbearable pressure that left me breathless. Panic seized me, its icy tendrils coiling around my racing heart as I desperately fought against the invisible force that held me captive. Struggling with all my might, I exerted every ounce of energy I could muster, yet my attempts to lift myself were in vain. In that horrifying moment, the only part of my body that could move was my neck and head, which I thrashed about, frantically screaming for my mother's assistance. But to my dismay, my pleas for help seemed to vanish into the ether, unheard and unanswered. My younger sibling, oblivious to the terror unfolding beneath her, slumbered soundly in the bunk bed above, unaware of the silent battle that I was waging. Overwhelmed by fear and a mounting sense of claustrophobia, I continued to struggle, my vocalizations reduced to guttural sounds as the pressure intensified, relentlessly creeping up from my neck to my head. Soon my jaw locked, rendering me incapable of articulating coherent words. It was as if an invisible malevolence sought to silence me, to prevent me from seeking the aid I so desperately needed. Left with no other recourse, I turned to prayer, my mind reciting the Hail Mary repeatedly, a plea for divine intervention and protection. The litany of words echoed in my mind, a lifeline amidst the suffocating darkness that enveloped me. Minutes stretched into eternity, yet I persisted, my voiceless Antraides intermingling with the ceaseless repetition of the prayer. And then, as if by some miraculous intervention, the oppressive weight gradually began to recede, starting from my head and descending down to my ankles. As I concluded the final utterance of the prayer, an inexplicable sensation akin to hands gently releasing my ankles washed over me. Overwhelmed with trepidation, I remained paralyzed, reluctant to make even the slightest movement. Instead, I resumed my prayers, seeking solace in the divine as I clung to my sibling, who slumbered blissfully unaware beside me. It was in that fragile cocoon of prayer and companionship that I sought refuge, finding solace in the knowledge that I was not alone. The following day, still reeling from the harrowing encounter, I mustered the courage to share the entire ordeal with my mother. In her response, she uttered words that sent a chill down my spine, blending folk superstitions with religious beliefs. In her opinion, a malevolent presence, a demon of sorts, had targeted me during my purported transgressions as a bad kid. I rolled my eyes at her superstitious explanation, recognizing the implausibility of such claims. However, what she shared next unsettled me even further. My mother, after dismissing my fears, imparted a peculiar piece of advice, urging me to sleep exclusively on my side, a position that allegedly repelled these malevolent forces. She went so far as to offer me guidance on propping myself up with pillows to ensure that I maintained this protective posture throughout the night. As an additional measure of protection, she presented me with a golden necklace adorned with a cross and the image of Our Lady Guadalupe, a talisman of sorts to ward off any lingering malevolence. Although skeptical of these precautions, I accepted the necklace, grateful for any semblance of protection that it might offer. Years passed, and thankfully, I did not experience another incident of a similar nature. Nevertheless, the memories of that night has remained etched in my mind, a constant reminder of the inexplicable forces that can intertwine with our lives. It serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of prayer, and the indomitable strength that can be summoned in times of dire need. And so, I carry forward, forever cautious of the darkness that lingers at the periphery, forever grateful for the light that guides my path. Story number 9. Why am I being bothered by strange activity? Throughout my childhood, which seems like a never-ending series of paranormal encounters, I've been plagued by inexplicable phenomena that have left an indelible mark on my psyche. At the age of 17, I find myself reminiscing about these eerie experiences, contemplating their significance in the grand tapestry of my life. In the darkest corners of my memory, I am haunted by the sinister figure known as the Hat Man, a shadowy presence that has sent shivers down my spine on numerous occasions. Lately, however, the frequency of these unearthly episodes has escalated, causing my heart to race with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Strange occurrences have become a regular part of my existence, making me question the nature of reality itself. No longer confined to the shadowy recesses of my mind, the paranormal seems to manifest in the physical realm with increasing intensity. The first sign that something was amiss came in the form of an eerie scratching and tapping noise that reverberated through the walls of my room, regardless of the time of day. It was as if an invisible force was trying to communicate with me, attempting to breach the barrier between the mortal and the supernatural. The relentless scratching and tapping became an ominous soundtrack to my daily life, an unnerving reminder that I was not alone. But the disturbances did not stop there. To my utter disbelief, I soon discovered that even my window had become a conduit for the otherworldly. Tapping sounds almost like ethereal fingertips gently caressing the glass would echo throughout the night, interrupting my already fragile slumber. How could this be? What force was beckoning me from the other side, yearning to reveal its secrets? I felt like a pawn in a cosmic game caught between the realms of the living and the dead. Sleep has become an elusive companion as insomnia has wrapped its suffocating tendrils around my wary mind. Night after night, I find myself locked in a battle against my own consciousness, desperately seeking the solace of rest that remains perpetually out of reach. Instead, my nights are plagued by night terrors and suffocating grips of sleep paralysis, as if the supernatural entities that encircle me take pleasure in tormenting my very essence. As I lay in bed, paralyzed and vulnerable, I am accosted by a symphony of whispers. The insidious voices, barely discernible at first, call out my name with an eerie familiarity, their tone growing more urgent and menacing with each passing night. It's as if an invisible congregation is gathered around my bed, intently fixated on me. Their intentions veiled in a sinister shroud. Why me? What have I done to attract their attention? These questions haunt my every waking moment, filling my mind with trepidation and doubt. Story number 10. Sister. I've never really given much thought to the existence of ghosts or demons. It's not that I don't believe in them. Perhaps it's my way of avoiding any encounters or simply out of fear. In my mind, the less we believe, the less likely we are to come face to face with a ghost. However, my sister's experiences have shaken my beliefs. She has been possessed not just once, but twice. It's as if she's become a vessel for these supernatural entities, and if she happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, something ominous follows her back. The first possession occurred while she was still in high school. I don't remember much about it, and it didn't really bother me at the time, but now she's in college and the haunting incidents have taken a toll on her. Our bedrooms are adjacent, both located on the second floor while our parents' bedroom is downstairs. She often spends her time sitting outside the room, lounging on the couch, playing with her phone or engaging in video games. On the other hand, I prefer to remain within the confines of our bedroom. One evening as I left the room at around 7 o'clock, she asked me an unexpected question. "Didn't you just come downstairs?" I was taken aback because I had just left the room. She explained that she had been talking to me and even saw me smiling in response. I brushed it off as her being crazy and made a lighthearted joke about it. The following morning, she complained of a feeling of overwhelming heaviness and weariness on her body. She confided in our mother, expressing her concern about the previous day's incident where she had spoken to me, but not really to me. Our mother, aware of what my sister had gone through in the past, didn't find it strange at all. In the evening, my mother decided to take my sister to someone who was reportedly skilled in removing ghosts or demons. As my father was working, I was asked to accompany them. Reluctantly, I obliged, though I opted to stay outside while they went in. Fear had gripped me. Inside, my sister's hysteria reached its peak. She screamed uncontrollably as the person performed rituals, uttering unfamiliar words and attempting to extract the unseen presence from within her. My mother had to hold her tightly, preventing her from fleeing. Yet, even amidst this chaos, what terrified me the most was the way her eyes locked onto mine whenever she screamed. Our gazes met, and it sent shivers down my spine. Every hair on my body stood on end. Her eyes, filled with horror, were so far removed from their usual state. I knew my sister well, and her eyes had never looked like that before. After the arduous process concluded and we returned home, I immediately called my friend, desperately seeking refuge at his house. The thought of sleeping next to my sister's room was too unnerving for me to bear. Being a night person, I often found myself awake between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m., frequently making trips downstairs for a late-night drink. I feared that upon waking up, I might find my sister down there as well, and the shock could cause me to react in a way that would maybe harm or distress her. I couldn't bear to meet her eyes anymore. They held a haunting presence. So in order to escape this trauma, I sought temporary solace at my friend's house, hoping that distance would help dissipate my fear and allow me to eventually face my sister once again. Story number 11. Bodmin Jail, Spiritual Attachment or Past Life Memories. In August of 2018, I embarked on a remarkable journey with my family to the renowned Bodmin Jail, an infamously haunted location. At the time, I was a young and curious 16-year-old, not yet a firm believer in the paranormal. While I had indulged in countless paranormal shows and avidly consumed books on the subject, I had never personally encountered anything that I could confidently describe as supernatural. My mind was open, but my own experiences were limited. Furthermore, I was fortunate enough to have no previous encounters with mental health issues either. Life had treated me well thus far, and I possessed a sense of confidence and contentment and anticipation for the future. These details are crucial for understanding the events that unfolded on the subsequent impact that it had on my life. Fast forward to our familial holiday in Cornwall, and our decision to explore the enigmatic Bodmin Jail. The allure of this abandoned wing, picturesquely entwined with ivy and slowly deteriorating under the encroaching layers of moss, captivated our imaginations. We had visited similar sites in the past, and while all prisons possess an inherently eerie ambience, Bodmin exuded a unique aura that immediately caught my attention. Stepping through the towering gates into the somber courtyard, I felt an inexplicable surge of adrenaline, as if my heart rate would have skyrocketed at any moment. My recollection of the building and our guided tour has become somewhat fragmented over the passage of 5 years, but I will endeavor to recount it as best I can. I vividly remember descending a narrow staircase with a cast iron handrail, venturing deeper into the basement levels of the jail. As I crossed the threshold into the lower depths, an overwhelming wave of emotions crashed upon me. It was as if I could physically sense the residual emotions embedded within the building's very foundation. The air seemed to constrict around me, tightening its grip on my stomach, while I felt completely detached from my surroundings. This experience remains etched in my memory as one of the most distressing sensations I've ever encountered. Trying to articulate the sensations to my girlfriend, I likened it to a nightmare where not only the events or places were nightmarish, but one's very existence was plagued by darkness and despair. It was as if my reality had transformed into a plane of torment and fear, constructed entirely from pain and anguish. A particular sense gripped me in the basement, an overwhelming feeling that unspeakable events had occurred in those lower levels. clandestine acts of abuse and punishment that history had failed to unearth. The imprisoned souls seemed to cry out, their voices echoing the crimes committed against them, far more extreme and perverse than what conventional knowledge about prisons would suggest. In the months following our visit to Bodmin Jail, I commenced college and soon began to experience sensations previously foreign to me. There were moments when I would suddenly find myself engulfed in the same darkness and panic I had encountered in the basements of the jail. Days passed where I felt as if my mind was ensnared while my body roamed free. Unexplained bouts of tears became a regular occurrence, seemingly untriggered by the external events. My life was otherwise going well, devoid of any discernible catalyst for these reactions. It was during the ensuing winter that I resolved to seek therapy. My mental well-being deteriorated on multiple fronts, most intriguingly manifesting in a profound unease that enclosed spaces gave me. Classrooms with closed doors, buses, or rooms devoid of clear exits. A therapist once drew parallels between my symptoms and those of individuals grappling with post-traumatic stress disorder, specifically citing an example of someone who had previously been incarcerated. Astonishingly, I had failed to connect the dots during this period, the visit to Bodmin Jail slipping from the forefront of my mind. Throughout my recovery from the depths of depression, I cultivated an interest in meditation and spirituality. Meditation proved to be an invaluable tool in my healing process, and naturally, I found myself delving into various meditation practices. One fateful day, I embarked on a guided meditation designed to unlock glimpses of past lives. While I never arrived at any conclusive revelations regarding past incarcerations, I did encounter vivid imagery during those introspective sessions. Hastily, I sketched these images on scrap paper to preserve them. Amongst the visions, one struck me as uncannily familiar, an image of a clock tower. At some point during that same day, the realization washed over me like a tidal wave. The clock tower featured predominantly near Bodmin Jail, nestled near a set of roundabouts in the village. Suddenly, all the memories of the jail, the visit, and the sensations I had experienced surged back into my consciousness, submerging me once again in the same engulfing darkness I had felt in the jail's basement. My research led me to the discovery that the clock tower occupied the very spot where the town gallows had stood before the prison constructed its own gallows within its formidable walls. It took considerable time and introspection to arrive at the conclusion that the visit to Bodmin Jail may have triggered the emotional turmoil that consumed me. The random surges of intense feelings, anger, fear, hopelessness, entrapment, betrayal, that continue to assail me sporadically may not just be arbitrary as I once believed. I have reason to suspect that something accompanied me as I departed from that jail, whether it be the memories and emotions of another tormented soul who had suffered within those walls, or remnants of my own experiences from a previous lifetime. Regardless, my life has been forever altered. Though I made it a commendable recovery from the depths of my mental anguish, enduring 2 years of torment, I've never been the same. These are moments when I'm thoroughly immersed in the joys of a good day, only to have unexplainable presence materialize within me, instantly transporting me back to the harrowing depths of the jail's basement. In those instances, I feel an overwhelming surge of fear, entrapment sickness, coldness, and anger, only for it to dissipate as swiftly as it had arrived. Thus, I find myself on an ongoing journey of acceptance, gradually acknowledging that I did not depart Bodmin Jail alone. Something clings to me, a residue of memories and emotions that intertwines with my own existence. Whether the haunted echoes of another suffering or the remnants of my own tumultuous history, I can't say. However, one truth remains. My life has forever been etched with the indelible ink of that haunting visit.